Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I want to talk about a very interesting story, a very interesting topic about myself. And that is practically because this month, May, is my birth month. I really want to talk about some things that has actually brought me here. And one of the things I have learned from my journey is that one way or the other, if you have gone through some major life experiences, one or two major life season or one or two major life transformation, these parts of you do not just exist for them to exist. They exist for you to be more. They exist for you to be a better version of yourself. They exist for you to have a foundation, the background it requires for you to become a better version of you. And along the line, through my own journey, I figured that the life we are actually looking for is embedded in the one we are currently living. But if you're not searching far, wide, over, beyond, and within, you won't be able to pull these things together to help you navigate that journey. And there is always a transition phase in between that eventually leads to becoming that part of you. And that is the phase I call the transition, the transformation, the development stage that you feel like everything is not just going on the way you want it to be. You think that stage is a stage whereby things become uncomfortable. The kind of dreams you feel you would have wanted to come to life does not feel like you want it anymore, or you begin to see that kind of path you've been treading on so far, or the one you might even be working on, is not actually the one you would have wanted, and it feels like the whole part of your existence feels like chaos, feels like you don't even know where you are going. And I really want you to understand that that is exactly where the transformation begins. That's exactly when that ideal part of you begins to come to life. It begins to manifest because you are not just portraying the old part of you. You are trying to shift your identity consciously and subconsciously, which will in turn, one way or the other, either you like it or not, especially with the fact that you really want to become better, will eventually come to life. And this is what has actually happened to me over my journey. And at the end of the day, I figure that this is a phase I can actually sum total into transitioning or awakening. But at the end of the day, it is not just about coming up to live a new life. It is about coming up to live a new life and understanding why you are actually born to live in that life. So this month series is actually going to be about my journey as a single mother of two, a divorcee, and a woman that is trying to build a life for herself and her children, coming from almost nothing. Because when I look back at my story, it is more like I don't even have any business to fall back to. No certificate, no qualification, no degree, no anchor, nobody to say, "Take this is how you actually live your life to feed your children." I think that it's a whole lot of journey, but at the same time, I get to understand that this entire part of my life wouldn't have come to life if I did not go through this awakening process. And Alhamdulillah, so far, there are so many of us out there that are in this situation that we still question ourselves up to today. How do we come out of this? But I want you to know that you are not alone because this journey, you're not meant to walk through it alone. Though you might feel like at this present moment you are striving, you're not even close to thriving, you're just surviving every day. But on the contrary, you are not actually alone because people have walked this path. And because people have walked this path and they have become successful through their mindset, their spirituality, their physical anchor, it's obvious that you are not alone and you are also bound to walk through this path. Just that you need to go far beyond the beginning to be able to get answers to most of the questions you have. So, the series for this month, which is also my birth month, is going to be about my personal journey. The previous month, I talked about the journey of my single motherhood, how I'm able to deal with relationship, how I'm able to balance my care and transitioning the journey of being a single mom of two without a certificate, without an anchor. I also talked about financial empowerment with the little knowledge I've been able to put together over the years, even with the fact that I don't have a qualification. I have been able to at least get myself to a point whereby I can say, yes, I am trying out of nothing. So I figured that I want to continue with this series, and I want it to also be a kind of documentation part of my life where I get to sit back at a point in time and watch myself go back to the months, the years where I am clueless about what I actually want to become, to the point whereby I begin to understand and gain clarity of the kind of life I want for myself. So this month series is going to be about my raw journey. And I'm starting off with my spiritual awakening. And that is actually coming from the point whereby I get to understand life through my Deen, through spirituality, through universal laws, through alignment, and also through healing. And I figured that this is a whole lot in one. But at the end of the day, when we look at our lives, it is more like a combination of every single thing the life has to offer. There is spirituality, there is religious, there is physical power, there is supernatural being, there is sensation, our emotions, and everything one way or the other comes together to manifest the kind of life we are living. For example, I want to be a woman that is rich. That is my thought. Then I begin to attach my emotions to it. I begin to maybe want to think like somebody that is rich, or begins to look at how I can become rich by selling or by offering value services in exchange for time. And at the end of the day, I go to pray to my creator that I want this to happen to me. It's just like a combination of supernatural, religious notions, my emotions, my belief system, and the way I live my life on a daily basis. So I figure that when it comes to you awakening into life, it's more of putting these notions together in terms of understanding your life through the lens of your Deen. I am not here to preach the religion to you, but I am a fan of understanding that there is actually something beautiful, big, magnificent that has put every single one of us into this life. And because of that, why shouldn't you believe in such existence? And if you are able to believe in such existence, you would be able to understand that all the things we are trying to put to come to life in this world will not happen without His consent. So, because of that, when we go through the spirituality realm, understanding that it is a supernatural being, then we come back to our physical state and begin to see some of these things manifest into our real life. Have you ever wondered why you think of someone and at the end of the day, the person either plays a call through you, or you stumble on the person when you're going somewhere, or you have a glimpse of what the person is doing presently on social media? This is not a coincidence. I have been able to understand that there is spirituality, there is also supernatural, and there is also universal connection about our life. So when you're trying to go through the journey of you understanding and finding a clue about yourself, you need to understand that there is something called spiritual awakening. And this is how you begin to understand that there is more to this life. There is more to every single thing that is happening to you. And the more you keep questioning, asking, trying, going through the process of having clarity and navigating, you begin to understand why every single thing that has happened to you has actually happened to you. So this is not just about a YouTube video, it is about my life and what I have been able to see come to life through this journey. So I am talking about how my spiritual awakening happened and how I'm able to get to this part. The very first thing I want to talk about at the moment that broke my heart. One thing we all need to understand is that the life we are living in and the life we are looking for, one is embedded in the other one. It's just like a two peas in a pod. I mentioned in the earlier section of this video that the life we are looking for is embedded in the one we are actually living in. And that is where this part of the video comes in. The moment that has broke you is not just there to render you clueless about your life. It is there to open your eyes to the possibilities of the things you can do. As much as I've not been able to overcome my limiting belief 100%, but I think I've been able to understand that every single thing that has happened to us has happened for a reason. Now the choice is yours. If you want to keep treading on the old path, or do you want to become a better version of yourself? So it is not a two-way thing, it is a one-way thing. Either you choose to go forward or you choose to go backward. So the moment that has broke me is the time whereby I begin to understand that I have just one decision to make. And this decision is coming out of just two options. Do I want to go back or I just want to move forward? So this moment that broke me at the moment that I actually thought that nothing would actually come to life, nothing will exist again. I feel that, or I felt that this moment is actually the end of my entire story. But at the end of the day, I figured it is actually the path where I begin to get my awakening. And this moment came from when I had to say goodbye to a relationship or a marriage that I've nurtured for over 7 to 8 years. This is also a moment whereby I get to live with my two kids without a certificate, without qualification, without any tangible money in my account. This is the moment whereby, after leaving, my ex-husband decided to get married to somebody else, and he went back to the same school I thought I was letting go just to nurture the family, the relationship. And also, it's also the time whereby I get to go through life. Life did not wait for my permission to give me responsibility. You know, life happens to me, and I was being pulled, dragged, forced into becoming that woman that had to stand up for her two children with nothing. And at the end of the day, I figured that there are days that there are silent, there are times I just feel like there is nothing more. And I don't know how to explain this in depth, but I know there are some of us out there that can actually relate with this moment where the only thing you do every day is just to wake up, cry, think, and the thoughts you're even thinking are not even solution based. They are just adding problem because you are overclouded with the thought of why did this happen? Instead of asking yourself the question, what is this teaching me or where is this taking me? So because you're asking the wrong question or because I was asking the wrong question, I was at the very least of myself. And that is the moment that actually broke me open. That is the moment that I began to see life in a different manner. And at the end of the day, when I was in this situation, I was thinking, holding on to people to help me out. I think at that point, I never actually understand the concept of healing starts from within. Or before you can actually become a better version of yourself, it starts with you, and you can't give what you don't have. That peace, that settlement, that tranquility, you think you're looking for from somebody out there, you need to be able to create a home within yourself. Only when you can see within yourself can you begin to, expand. Can you begin to attract what feels like calmness to your life? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say there. What I mean there is that when we are in this part of our lives, the moment that would question every single part of our existence, we think holding on to people, we think holding on to situation, we think putting the blame on people, on situation, on places is actually the thing that would give us sanctuary. But the thing is that people look for retreat over and beyond the coast, but they are forgetting that the best place to look for retreat is in their mind, is inside of them. Until you are able to find that retreat, that settlement, that sanctuary inside of you, can you begin to attract what feels like home. And that is one thing I was able to understand at that point. And I come up with this quote I still keep using up to today, which is a woman shouldn't be saddled with the responsibility of raising children alone. She needs to create a home within herself she can also call a home. not because she does not want to be submissive, but because she needs to be a whole before she can take part in anything that requires her full attention in life. As a woman, it is not just about giving birth to children. It is not just about nurturing or becoming a wife to someone. You need to be a whole within you because most of the journey we are transitioning or we are going through as a woman requires our full attention. And if you are not a whole, how do you think you'll be able to take part in something that requires your whole sanity? It is not a joking situation when a woman gets married, lose part of her self-esteem, part of her body, part of her dignity to raise a child. And you think it does not take a courageous woman to be able to get out of that and still look at her best. No, it's so much to take in at that point. And I figured that one day, just in depth of that confusion, I was able to come up with the question that says, why exactly am I going through this? I asked that question again, and I figured that something in me told me that I am asking the wrong question. And then I shifted it and said, what is this trying to teach me? What is the purpose of all this? What is this coming out to become? And at that point, something just struck me and said, why should I believe that all of this is happening without a reason? I should be having a life better than this. And because this has happened, does not mean I can't get better in life. And that was how everything begins to shift. So, one thing I want you to understand is that I have said this over and over again. Don't just keep asking yourself why this is happening to you. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach you? And what do you stand to accomplish with the whole of this that is happening to you? At that point, I don't have anything figured out. At that point, I don't even have a certificate. I don't even have a better job. I know I don't even know how to feed my children. But the question and the whole resolution that came to my mind is that I can't possibly go through the whole of this without nothing. I don't think the whole of this should be happening to me just for happening's sake. I know my name does not even exist in newspaper today as a good or bad person. And I know I haven't brought these children to this life to continue with this stupid legacy of falling victim of a situation. Why don't I just pick myself and do something better with my life? It has happened. I have been disappointed, but something should come to life. And I can actually say that was when I began to understand that this life should not just be about what has happened to you. It should be about how you can begin to do something beautiful with what has happened to you. I don't know what your story is about because you don't know 100% of mine, but I want you to know that that thing, that situation you are in, shouldn't be your downfall. It should be an opportunity for you to become a better version of yourself. It should be an opportunity for you to choose to continue to fight until you get there. You don't stop because the failure is the one that stops. The one that fails is the one that stops trying. Either you like it or not, somebody is living their most beautiful life out of that idea you think is stupid in your head. That is one thing about success. At the beginning, success feels stupid. It feels like you are out of this world. When I wanted to start making videos, I would look at my family and I would tell myself, who has done this and succeeded? No one. Who is a celebrity in my family? No one. Who has made money on social media? No one. But that is how it actually starts. Because no one has achieved that in your family does not mean you are not going to be achieving such. And these are the things that came to my mind then. I look around me, there is nothing like success around on social media, businesswoman, or office woman. But when I actually begin to look inside of me, I am a woman that would actually love to own my workspace, go to work, have my own life, and control my own money, and even be with a man without impulse intentions. When I was able to go through this moment, there is one thing I began to work on, and that is what I actually understood that it is my sanctuary, and that is how my Deen became the foundation of my awakening. Like I mentioned earlier, I am a fan, I am a believer. I believe in spirituality, I believe in universe, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, and I believe that He has created every single grain of human into this world to achieve something beautiful. Actually, there are major purposes we human beings have to serve in this world. So the first one, which is important, we cannot and never do without as a believer, is that our duty is directed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is directed to Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is because why don't you surrender to the one who has created you? Why don't you accept the fact that He has created you in this world and He understands fully well every single thing that is bound to happen to you? And if you are able to direct your belief to that path, then every other thing begins to become a problem solved, even without you thinking about them. And that was how I started. I figured that before the spirituality could actually manifest, before the universal laws of self development, I choose my day. I choose to understand Allah. I choose to give myself that time to be able to understand the being behind my existence. And because of that, that gave me much clarity on how to address my situation. Instead of looking at this person has ruined my life, I change it back to Allah that created me knows that this person has controlled my life to an extent. But at this point, he would help me take charge of my life. So this is not coming from the fact that he has ruined my life. It is coming from the fact that Allah has seen what has happened. So I am going back to him to help me reclaim my life. Even with the fact that I don't know how to do everything right yet. Obviously, yes. But at the end of the day, it is a kind of assertion, affirmation that gives me a kind of binding force that what I am intending to bring to the world is not just in the hand of that person, it is in the hand of the creator that's created me into this world. So I had to start seeing life through the lens of Tawheed, understanding that Allah is the beginning, Allah is the head, Allah is the one that controls everything, Allah is the one that knows the meaning behind every moment. So I began to understand that every heartbreak should be a means of purification. Every disappointment should actually be able to redirect me into becoming a better version of myself. So every delay should protect me from something. Every test should elevate me to become better. And every season should prepare me to become a better version of myself. So this is one thing that if you begin to put your mind where necessary, then spirituality will keep you connected to that spiritual being and subconsciously begin to understand that what has happened is happening for a reason. And because of that, it is taking me somewhere. And because of that, I will be able to go through life in a manner whereby I get to see that every single thing has been ordained. And because it has been ordained, it will not pass me. When it is time, mine would come to life. So this is not just a section of giving yourself that illusion that something is going to happen. It is a concept of you understanding that you have to be steadfast because every single thing you're looking for is actually in the hands of the one that has created you. So when you start with that, you begin to trust Allah, which I did. And that is why I'm talking about it today. So my religion, my deen, became the foundation, or it started as the foundation of my awakening. So I get connected to Allah. I make sure I begin to attend. I even posted a video some I think last year on my spiritual awakening, that is purity, taking my body away from me, my spirituality, connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then beginning to set goals of how I actually want my life to be. So you need to understand that spiritual awakening, you have to be able to connect to the root of the source or the source of the root first before you can actually begin to say, yes, this is where I'm going, because I can tell you I can guarantee you there is no amount of success you are looking for that will not come to life without the consent of Allah Azawajal. So you just have to seek for His permission, seek for His validation, and seek for His sanctuary instead of looking out from people that are not even up to half of what you carry within you. When I begin to have the anchor through my day, I figure that there is a part of my inner world that begins to meet that subconscious part of me, or should I say, my subconscious part begins to meet my conscious part of me, and that is my inner world. And that is how the spirituality begins to manifest. When you are in a realm whereby you surrender to the unseen, you have that settlement within you that there is a supernatural being that is controlling every single affairs of your life. You begin to understand that when you are having some emotions, there are actually messages trying to communicate to you or with you. You begin to understand that when you have a kind of trigger, a part of you begins to sense that something is about to happen or something is bound to happen. When you have a kind of intuition, you begin to feel like acting on it, and at the end of the day, it serves as a guidance. Even when you make mistakes with this intuition, you get something out of it that calls your attention that you are being followed, you are being controlled, and whatever you are doing is actually guided. And at the end of the day, even if that step you are taking does not look like it is feasible, it is summing up to become success, a part of you still understand that it is taking you somewhere. And then you begin to understand that your struggles will actually lessen. You also begin to understand that the energy you have within you is communicating to some part of you that you don't even believe it exists. At the end of the day, it figures that when you are in this state of silence, it is sacred. You have the settlement within you. And instead of you looking out there, instead of you getting to talk to people that don't even understand the kind of transitions you're going through, you would rather decide to just sit alone because you understand quite all right that that aspect of you is connected to a part of you that is actually under, should I call it transformation or transition. And this is one thing I want you to understand that I had to walk through. And I want you to understand that this journey gets lonely at the beginning, but when you are able to relax yourself and listen to the voice within you, you realize that there is nothing you're actually looking for that you don't have within you. It takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of steadfastness to go through the storm of life and then surrender to the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal. But at the end of the day, you get to understand that you having him just at the tap of your finger or at the snap of your finger gives you so much courage that you can ever imagine to have gotten from people that might not even at the end of the day understand where you're going or not even support the kind of vision you have for your life. When I begin to understand the spirituality and getting connected to a part of me, I figure that there are some times during our journey, there are some truths we find hard to acknowledge within ourselves. Like there was a video I watched some time ago that actually talked about you having some serious conversations with yourself. Sometimes the kind of suffering we are going through is as a result of really not having some serious conversations with ourselves. We are not actually facing the truth. We are not actually justifying. We're trying to blame others for our inadequacies. We're trying to push the blame to somebody else because this thing did not work. But one thing I was able to understand about spirituality is that when you are able to make your emotions, your triggers, your intuition, your struggles, your energy with so much calmness, you begin to see things clearly. You don't just act on impulse, you act on responses. You don't just act on reaction. You act on the fact that why not I look at my situation through another lens? And you're bringing out the lens from the one you've been looking at it from to another lens, you get to understand that there is actually more to what you think is happening. And that is more like you are looking at the man. You are spinning at the moon without actually having the full picture of what everything is about. So when I'm able to walk through my spirituality, I was able to go through the universal laws, which is there are some things, there are some notions that we need to begin to inculcate into our lives. You know, having this awakening phase and becoming a better version, shifting your identity from the chaos lifestyle to becoming a settled and relaxed form of yourself deals with understanding the way the life actually operates. You know, we are not just born into this world to live, to exist. We are born into this world to create an impact, to have a legacy. Because every single thing that has happened 10, 15 years ago is a reflection of what is happening now. But one way or the other, people are trying to create a new legacy for the next 10, 15, 25 years that is about to come. So those that have actually created this legacy are normal. They have lived in a manner, but the legacy they have still lingers. And that is why we need to look at it that the way the universe operates goes more than what we are just saying. It goes more than what we feel we should have or what we feel should be happening. It's about the continuity of existence and how this continuation affect every single being that comes to life. And I was able to actually come up with these universal laws that are very, very dear to me, which I still use to live my life up to today. And the universal law did not just pull me away from my day, it explained why everything was happening. It explained why what I want should be what I want. It explained why what I don't want sometimes should be what I need. In fact, it explains why what I don't want is actually what I need. But I was not actually looking at it in that way. So the more I begin to balance these notions, the clearer most of the aspects and the areas of my life begin to come. And I figured that I was not just living in chaotic lifestyle, I was living in understanding, in settlement that the life I actually want is possible. Only if I'm able to look past what has happened to me and understand clearly that the life I'm looking for is embedded in the one I'm actually living in. And the first law that I was able to actually understand, which helped me so far give me this understanding, is the law of correspondence, as within, so without. When we are in this chaotic part of our lives, when we feel that a lot of things are happening in a manner that we don't like. Have you checked within you? Have you seen the kind of I don't want to use energy because there is this particular law that talks about that which I'm going to get into in the second point. Have you looked at your life as a mirror? What you have inside of you is a reflection of the people that will get attracted to you, the kind of mentality, the kind of intuition, the kind of patterns, the kind of sequence, the kind of norms you have normalized in your life is what is attracting those things to you. And I think I talked about this in one of the video I shared the early section of this year, which is how you can change your mindset to live a better life. Some of us are operating on the mindset of what has happened to us before. We are thinking, we have believed, we have honored some notions about our life just because something has happened to us repeatedly, or because somebody has mentioned something to us, or because we have been wired to believe something. So because of that, we carry that recognition inside of us. And that is what eventually begins to attract the kind of experience, the kind of reality we are having in our life. So for you to actually undergo a spiritual awakening, you need to understand that what you have within you is what will eventually begin to reflect out of you. So you need to understand that people will treat you the way you treat yourself. People will look at you the way you look at yourself. If you see yourself as a failure, as a mistake, which I was doing then, people were seeing me as a mistake. I have heard somebody call me a liability because I usually tell myself I'm a liability. I usually tell myself, where will I see a man that will take me with two children and take up my responsibility? I usually see myself like I need someone that would help me. And because of that, every single person I meet is always like they want to help me, not that they actually see any good thing inside of me. And that is because my inside is telling me that I need help. So because of that, help is coming to me in a manner that I don't even appreciate at the end of the day. So you need to understand that your patterns come from your inner wound, and the healing you have inside of you would eventually change the outside world. So you need to understand the law of correspondence. And I took my time because it's not a journey you step into and expect that everything will work out miraculously. It's the journey of continuity, a journey of continuation. So look at yourself, look at your life as a mirror. What is inside of you would eventually justify what you have outside of you. And the second law I begin to understand going through my journey is the law of vibration. That is, your energy speaks before your word. You see, when you are in a state of fear, dilemma, in fact, there is no way about it. And at this point, I'm just grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I am able to talk about this part of my life in a manner that I I feel settled and I understand within me that the kind of state I have, the kind of energy I project out there will determine the kind of people, the kind of reality I attract. When I am in fear, I eventually attract chaos. When I am in a manner where I am so scared, I don't know what will happen. I always attract this this friction that feels like nothing is happening at all. But that is just the energy I'm projecting out there, and it is attracting the same thing to me. So when you have the faith, you have clarity, you don't have to figure out your 10 years later today. Honestly, I know there are so many people out there that will say, plan your 10 years and begin to work on it. But sometimes planning your 10 years can put you in a dilemma that you wake up every day and you feel like this is problem. But at the end of the day, I figure that when you have the faith, you're grounded in it, you attract clarity. You don't have to figure out your 10 years today. You can just start figuring out your next 24 hours. You can just start figuring out your next 5 hours. You can just start figuring out your next 7 days. And that gives you a lot of clarity outside chaos. And at the end, I figure that when I'm in gratitude, I begin to attract abundance because I look at myself and figure that yes, I don't have everything figured out, but the little ones I'm able to achieve, it's beautiful. It's something. And because it's something, it it is the foundation of what I actually need to get everything in place. And even if I don't get everything 100%, it's a starting point. So the emotional frequency you have is actually creating your reality. So when you're going through the journey of spiritual awakening, you need to understand that the energy you carry within you will attract the same energy. And there is this saying I learned in my school. For every action, there is always an equal or opposite reaction. So either you get the same level, or you even get something higher, or you even get something that is not even close to what you would have actually wanted. So you need to be mindful of the kind of vibration you have within you. And the third law, which I actually understood through the journey, is the law of cause and effect. Nothing happens without a purpose. And I think that is the foundation of this topic we started with. And that is because every single thing that has happened to you has happened for a reason. When I begin to tell myself this, things begin to get clearer. Every decision has shaped my path. Every decision you're taking has shaped your path. If you hadn't subscribed on your mobile phone, if you hadn't gone on YouTube, if you haven't clicked on this video, you wouldn't be watching this video by now. So now that you're watching the video, what do you intend to do with it when you're done watching it? So every decision you're taking will shape your path either positively or negatively. Every habit will shape your future. Every thought will shape your experience. Every decision you take will shape the next 24 hours of your life. So if you think you want to go back to where you're coming from, it's all yours. If you also think you want to step up and become better 100%, it is all yours. You are in charge to make that happen. You're in charge of bringing that into life. And the last one is the law of divine timing. You see, everything you happen or you want to happen into this life will happen exactly when it is supposed to happen. We might be thinking that we want this part of our life to come to life today. I want this goal to happen. Just want to keep rushing and rushing and rushing through life. You need to understand that you can't rush through life. Your awakening, your transformation, your rebirthing is just like planting a seed. There is a moment whereby the seed will just be there like it is dying, it is not waking up. Then it comes out with a simple stem stand, and the stem begins to find a way to come out of the ground. You see, a lot of things are actually happening on the ground that we are not seeing in terms of planting a seed. And I think that is one lens I have decided to look my life through. I see my life as a seed that is being planted. So inside the soil, there is a whole lot that is happening. And because I am not seeing that, that does not mean the plant is not growing, the seed is not germinating. So until we begin to see a stand, and when we even see a stand, it is not going to be coming up with a bigger tree. A simple stand. Then the stand comes up and begins to find its way up. Then it begins to solidify until it solidifies to a point that's what we begin to see other branches coming out. And when they come out, it's going to be looking very faint until it begins to find its way. And you know what will happen? If heavy rain should fall again, it is very much likely that this plant will almost feel like dying, but it will not die. It will germinate again. That is our life. That is human being. That is a woman that is going through the journey of transition, transformation, and awakening. There's going to be heavy rain. There's going to be bigger storm. There are going to be days that everything will feel like you are going back to square one. But do you know what will happen when you're able to go through that storm? You come out even stronger, and your roots stand firm in the ground until you begin to become a massive tree. And by the time you look back at it at the years, it takes more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years for you to eventually become that big tree that people will now begin to find abode under. So if you can look at your life at that lens of divine timing, you know that everything would align effortlessly when it is time. So these laws make my spiritual journey easier and out of chaos because I begin to understand that my day is connected to my soul, and also my soul is connected to my reality, and my reality is actually connected to my purpose. So you need to look at your life through this lens and understand that these universal laws are not just there just for you to have a normal sentence to read on. They are there for you to put it into your life and see your life as a plant. So, one of the things I get to understand is that when we are trying to go through this journey of awakening, there is always something called paradox. And I taught this in the literature subject I was taking in school, and that is paradox. Paradox is more like this thing is actually the truth. But when you look at it, you won't actually want to believe it is the truth until you sit down and analyze it properly. For example, when you are in school, we say example of paradox. One of the example of paradox is that you have to be comfortable with getting your hands dirty before you can actually achieve success. Somebody might be thinking that getting my hands dirty, does that mean I have to do something that is bad? That is not the in depth truth. The in depth truth is that you have to be willing to use your hand to do a number of things that you're not comfortable with, not in the manner of killing somebody or going outside the law, but you have to be able to use your hand to do so many things to the point whereby you put in the work without even thinking about the number of times you have done it to be able to achieve that success you're looking for. So somebody might be thinking, why must I get my hands dirty? But the reality, the paradox is that that is how the work needs to be done, or else you're not going to achieve anything beautiful. So when it comes to awakening, transition, becoming a better version of you, there are some paradox I have been able to understand, and it has actually helped me see things clearly. And I think I want to talk about just few of them. And the first one is that you heal by breaking first. If you don't go through those aspects of you, if those things did not happen, if you don't go through that major life transition, that heartbreak, that job, that family, that relationship, that career, if they did not live, if you don't face difficulty with them, you wouldn't be exposed, you wouldn't have known that you can do better or you can become better. So you heal by breaking first. That part of you has to leave, it has to shred, it has to become uncomfortable before you can actually begin to do something better with yourself. And also, you find clarity through confusion. There are so many times I have experienced chaos, confusion, and I keep asking myself, why are these things happening to me now? But I figure that if this confusion did not come to life, I wouldn't be here. In fact, the fact that I didn't have a certificate, a qualification, I get to teach in school. And how did it happen? I keep on questioning myself. How do I feed my children? How do I get back? How do I make money? And out of that, I thought, I've been to school just I don't have the certificate. Why not try out one school and see if I can do it? Then I stepped into it without clarity. I was confused because I was thinking they won't even let me speak. But at the end of the day, out of that confusion, I took the step. And at the end of the day, I gained clarity. I figured I can do this. So I started reading. I started learning to be able to teach. And gradually, I still teach up to today. Though I'm going to be leaving the school teaching job. Inshallah, I'll be going at the end of the session, which is around July, August, inshallah. But at the end of the day, I figured that if I hadn't gone through that confusion, if I hadn't taken that step, if I hadn't questioned my existence to be able to put something on the table for my children and myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's not going to be clear. You see that confusion you're running away from is what you actually need to gain clarity. And also, you gain strength through vulnerability. If you're thinking you don't want to make mistake, I am a fan of making mistake. In fact, at this point in my life, I can say mistake is one thing I want to keep making because the more I make them, the clearer my journey gets. And I begin to gain strength through those mistakes, through becoming vulnerable. Even things I never imagined I could be a victim of. But as I make the mistakes, as I am more vulnerable, I tend to pay attention to the lessons instead of the mistakes because your mistakes will be nothing to you if you don't turn them into lessons. So, because of that, you have to be able to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I can tell you there is nothing that will happen to you as long as you have your breath and blood is still running through your vein. You are going to sit yourself down and relax your nerve for you to be able to find a way out of it. So if you're not vulnerable, you're not going to be getting your strength, your power. And at the end of the day, you receive more when you detach. I understand that situation feels like a part of our life is attached to it. A part of our life is like we can't exist anymore without this part of our life being there. But I can tell you that when you detach yourself from something, you eventually give room for the things that are actually right for you. And also, you begin to rise higher when you surrender. And that is the first phase of this video. We need to surrender to the supernatural being. We need to surrender to the universe that we are not trying to force anything to happen. But you realize that when you have this freedom, this calmness, a part of you will begin to attract what is actually meant for you. And lastly, you find peace when you stop controlling life, which is attached to that. And I think there is one I actually want to mention, which is you find yourself when you lose the old version of you. Because this is more of identity shift. You are bringing the old version of you, trying to map out something beautiful from it. So when you're able to detach from that is the way you've been living your life, that is what you've always known for your life, that is what you've always believed in, you would always find yourself and even do better. So awakening taught me that pain and purpose are twins. You cannot have one without the other. No pain, no gain, like some people would always say. I actually want to quickly touch on some of the spiritual practices I engage in, which has actually helped me go through my spiritual awakening. And this is more like a ritual. I don't want to call it a ritual that much, but it is more like habit practices that has actually helped me to go through my spiritual awakening. And at the end of the day, there are some lessons I have been able to learn, or there are some, some notable words I have decided to always work on or to always wish for. Because at the end of the day, I figured that as I was trying to go through the journey of my spiritual awakening, I was not paying attention to those parts of me that needs to be worked on. The first thing I do is that as a Muslim, when I wake up in the morning, I always observe my salah, I observe Fajr, and after Fajr, I have a kind of an askar which we do, and I always love to have this quiet time that I used to sit back with myself and reflect on what has happened yesterday, what is going to happen the next day, and how I intend to go through the day. It's one thing to always sit down with yourself and listen to yourself speak. It will do you a whole lot of good when you are able to take some time off the chaos every morning, because it's not just about rushing and rushing and rushing through the day. It's just like you are giving yourself the permission to listen to yourself, speak to yourself. And at the end of the day, you figure that when you are remembering the existence of a spiritual being, you feel a lot relaxed and you feel really, really settled. And also, I try to work on my emotions, because instead of me acting on impulse, I try to ask myself, what is this trying to communicate to me? Should I respond or should I react? Of course, I don't want to react, because reaction is coming from uncertainty, is coming from chaos. I want to respond. And when I respond, I want to respond in a more calm state. And also, I try to give myself that solitude I'm looking for within somebody. Because if you are looking for a way to take charge of your life, is by giving yourself solitude. That calmness, that hug, that pet you're looking for from somebody. Why not look for it within yourself and give it to yourself? And I always try to listen to my intuition, because sometimes when I feel something, it might not actually be right, and which I'm actually still working on, because this person that I'm working on me understanding my intuition. Sometimes some thoughts will come to my head, run out of that, don't even stay behind, don't even listen. But at the end of that, I figure that they were just my defensive traits trying to come to life without actually analyzing what the situation is about. And also, I try to declutter my life. See, there is this training I actually did, which I'm still working on another one, that is declutter and realign. There are some aspects of our life that are not even necessary for our growth. So if you don't remove those things from your life in terms of relationship, friendship, it might be items, it might be memories, it might be emotions, it might be thoughts, it might be convictions. If you don't remove these things from your life, they begin to become a chaos. And when you remove them from your life, you need to replace them with things that are actually worthy for you to become better. For example, you have a messy table. Okay, you've cleared the table. What would you have actually wanted to be on that table? Don't just leave the table empty. Fill it in with those things you would have actually wanted. That is how your life begins to be aligned. And also, you need to align your decisions with your values, which I always try to do every single day. Every decision I take has to be that this is what I want, this is my value, and these are the things I actually want my life to be about. So, lastly, to wrap this up, there are four notions I have always decided to tell myself and I work on since I started this spiritual journey, and that is, I always wish for contentment of the heart, because if you are not contented with where you are, we are not accepting to settle, we are accepting to build. But because we're accepting to build, we need to be contented with where we are. Don't get me wrong, not that you should settle for less. We are not accepting to settle, we are accepting to build because the life we are looking for is better than the one we are living. So if you're not giving yourself that relaxation to at least accept what you have now as work in progress, you won't be able to see those beautiful things that are lying ahead of you. So, contentment of the heart is very important. You need to understand that there is no better life outside the one you are living. And if you want to create a better life, you need to use the one you have within you to create that better life. And also, I always wish for perseverance because I'm this person that is not always patient. I don't endure. And I think that it's really affected me when we're working on awakening of spirituality. You need to be able to endure the time. Life happens stage by stage. And I talked in my community, Telegram community, the life phases, life changing questions, and also some universal laws. There are times whereby you need to go through difficulty, you need to go through pain. This is not because the world is changing around you, but because there is a part of you that is waiting or that should be waiting calmly to see that next part of you come to life. So that difficulty you are facing might actually be the anchor you need for that next success you are looking for. So it is important for us to have perseverance. And it's just like I'm speaking to myself now. Perseverance is very important. Endure during the time, during the trial times, and be optimistic that something beautiful is eventually coming out of it. And also patience is more like perseverance. Perseverance is just like enduring through the time. Patience means I understand this thing will not happen now, so I am not forcing it. Perseverance is while I'm not forcing it, whatever is happening now, I am going to endure. So there is time for everything, and if you are not patient enough, you won't be able to see this result come to life. You won't be able to see that success you're looking for come to life. And I think lastly, we need to understand that there is time for everything which we have talked about. So everything you are going through, every transition, every journey takes time. And if you're not willing to give up the time, if you're not patient enough, you won't be able to see all of this come to life. You see, awakening is not actually a beautiful experience to go through because it's just like a whole part of you is breaking into pieces and you are trying to find a way to run out of it, but you don't have to run, trust me. You don't have to run away from it. You don't have to even shy away from it. You surrender to it. And at the end of the day, if you got that, it is actually the destination you have always wanted. Awakening is you grieving your whole self. It is you releasing unhealthy attachment. It is you letting go of decisions that does not add up to the kind of woman you would have wanted to be. And there is this question that I always ask myself whenever I want to take up a decision. Does this decision align with my true value? Except you don't even know your value yet. Does it align with my true value? If the question is yes, then it's a continuation. If the question is no, I don't even want to think about it anymore. I just decide to let it go without looking back. And that is what awakening is about. You need to choose alignment over convenience. You need to choose your battles wisely and be willing to face your truth. So if you're in a dark season and you feel that your soul is restless or you feel like life is confusing, you need to know that you are not breaking down. There is this part of you that is actually coming to life. There is this part of you that you are still cooking up. And when it eventually comes to life, you would be so happy that you allow yourself go through that phase. And one thing I want you to understand is that there is something called delayed gratification. You don't necessarily need to see that success immediately. You can as well give yourself time for whatever it is you're working on to manifest at its own time. Because the time it is coming to life is actually the perfect time for it to come and beautify you. So, this is one video at a time, and I hope it helped you understand how awakening can be the better way to that life you're looking for. In my next videos, I want to talk about religious belief I am holding on to because, like I mentioned, this week, this month content is about how I'm able to get better. And I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye.